The gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan, is now recognized for his testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to extend our sympathies to Ms. Torres and her family. Mr. Chairman, this legislation before us is yet another example of Democrats' obsession with President Trump. The sponsor of this bill spent years totally misleading the nation. Remember when he said he had proof of Russian collusion? Said, I have more than circumstantial evidence of collusion. The Mueller investigation found no such proof. The Justice Department found no such proof. The Democrats' failed impeachment investigations found no such proof and the reason they found nothing is because it was never true in the first place. That's right. The sponsor of this bill spent years misleading our country about President Trump and fear-mongering in the hopes of sowing enough division in our nation to help Democrats with their electoral goals. Now, with President Biden in office, Congressman Schiff and the Democrats want us to believe that their concerns are sincere, and these laws should apply regardless of who occupies the White House. But come on. Mr. Nadler just said it's not about Trump. Democrats, I just don't buy that. Democrats believe that President Trump will run again, and with President Biden's approval ratings at 38%, probably get elected again in 2024, and legislation like this will permit them to hamstring him with another truckload of bogus investigations. Maybe, just maybe, instead of obsessing over President Trump, the Democrats could pass some legislation that tackles the failures made by the current occupant of the White House. Everyone knows the American people are worse off today under President Biden and congressional Democrats than they were under President Trump. Inflation keeps rising. The latest jobs report was bleak. There's a crime epidemic ravaging our cities, and the southern border is beyond broken. President Biden let down our service members and allies in Afghanistan. He has his Attorney General and Justice Department as we speak, using federal counterterrorism resources to target parents who are sticking up for their kids at school board meetings. The Biden administration is a disaster. It's unfortunate we have to say that, but it's true. You know it, I know it, and most importantly, the American people know it. This bill is just an excuse for Congressman Schiff and the Democrats to keep peddling debunked conspiracy theories about President Trump. We should be on the floor talking about how to fix the border, how to make sure cities around the country don't jeopardize their public safety any more than they already have, or how to make sure Americans actually get Christmas presents on time this year. That's what the American people care about. That's what I hear about from the great people that I get the privilege of representing in the 4th District of Ohio. But even setting aside the Democrats' partisan motivations, much of this bill is just plain bad policy. Rather than promote oversight of the executive branch, this legislation would make it easier for attacks on Republicans from unelected and unaccountable bureaucracy. Of course, Republicans are in favor of responsible, legitimate oversight, and there may be a couple of ideas in this bill that we could support. But instead of working with us in good faith, Democrats jam these ideas into one big messaging bill without any hearings in the Judiciary Committee. And Mr. Chairman, if we're going to make big changes like this to laws related to the separation of powers in our country, then every single piece of this bill must and should go through regular order. Democrats want to make fundamental changes to government oversight and not hold hearings on every aspect of the legislation, where we could hear from experts about how these provisions would work in practice and what sort of unintended consequences might occur. If they were serious about this effort, they would have tried to work with us. If they were serious about this effort, the Democrats would not have been afraid to have hearings and markups on the very ideas that are in this legislation. They didn't either. Mr. Chairman, I urge opposition to the legislation. Yield back.